Ryan Clark got to be the silliest commentator on the internet. I would say on ESPN. Why do they still have him on there? That dude is literally a Black Lives Matter billboard walking.
First off, it's the second most ridiculous thing he said this week. The first was standing on campus and saying he wanted to put a statue up of somebody that doesn't represent the people of Louisiana, doesn't represent the players and the students at LSU, doesn't represent the executives that work there. That was the first dumb thing he said.
To me, bruh, unless you colorblind, this looks like the majority of the counties are red, and they definitely love Charlie Kirk. You want to bet? Like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get notifications. Anytime I go live or make a video, make sure you still subscribe to my channel, like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Let's get into this. Let's get to Ryan Clark because he's the silliest black man on the internet. And this dude is like the epitome of a low-functioning black man who never emotionally matured. It's like going to prison at 16 years old. Yeah, you got older, but you didn't emotionally mature. Yeah, you rich and you famous and you had a really good career in the NFL, but your social emotional intelligence is dead. Let's listen to what he had to say regarding sports. And I think that the governor has something to do with this because he was interviewed on another sports channel. But he was interviewed on ESPN. What was the other guy's show? It was Nick's favorite guy, Pat McAfee. He was interviewed on Pat McAfee's show, and I think Ryan Clark, I don't think he hates all white people because obviously his baby mama white and his kid is mixed, and he act like he blackity black, but he couldn't leave that white chocolate alone. Okay, so, but this is what he had to say. Let's roll the clip.
First off, it's the second most ridiculous thing
he
said this week.
Let's start over. I want you to listen to Ryan Clark, but look at Stephen A. while you listening to Ryan Clark. I text Stephen A. too. I said, bro, why you looking at Ryan Clark like that? And Stephen A. was like, I had no idea what he was talking about. So, roll the clip.
First off, it's the second most ridiculous thing he said this week. The first was standing on campus and saying he wanted to put a statue up of somebody that doesn't represent the people of Louisiana, doesn't represent the players and the students at LSU, doesn't represent the executives that work there. That was the first dumb thing he said this week. This is the second dumbest, right? Amongst a lot of dumb things that he says. Scott Woodward, for whatever he is a man who got Jay Johnson, right? Last I checked, the 2025 Louisiana State University Tiger baseball team was in the White House getting the GAT recently, right? He was there in 2019 when it's one of the greatest college football teams of all time. He also was there when he said, you know what, we're gonna go out and get Kim Mulkey, right? She brings a championship to the school with Angel Reese and with Flau'jae Johnson. And so to me, this is another situation of politicians poking their nose into things that they don't know about. And I honestly believe it was so he can get in front of a microphone and say, look at this connection I have to the president, and he likes to pick winners so he could placate to somebody he idolizes. You don't know nothing about football. There's enough going on in the state of Louisiana that needs to be fixed for its constituents. Well, I don't need you tweeting on Saturday night about what's going on in Tiger Stadium. There is too many issues happening right there under your nose that ain't got nothing to do with sports. Scott Woodward is a good man. Scott Woodward is a man that cares about LSU. In the greatest times, back in the day, he understood what it was like to be a part of a winner, and he's brought more winners back to the school. He didn't miss because Brian Kelly wasn't capable. He missed because Brian Kelly was no longer willing. Brian Kelly was no longer tapped in. Brian Kelly didn't care if the people of Louisiana cared about him, and he didn't care if the players knew that he cared about them. That's where it went wrong. Not in picking a man who was the winningest all-time coach in Notre Dame history. And so for me, it's emotional, clearly, and it pisses me off, but Scott Woodward deserves to pick the next head coach, and the governor should stay out of it.
Now, let's talk about this real quick. I might play the Pat McAfee. Did we take that, or I'll tell you to cut it? I'll tell you to cut it.
Pat McAfee with Jeff Landry.
Yeah. I might play the Pat McAfee clip because I think this is associated with what Ryan Clark was talking about with Jeff Landry kind of talking about the Brian Kelly buyout. But before we get there, when he said Charlie Kirk did not represent Louisiana and he did not represent the students at LSU, you mean the black students? Because you're not talking about overall students. I spoke at LSU. Charlie Kirk crowds of thousands of people at LSU. They love Charlie Kirk at LSU. This video is brought to you by myfireside.com, myfireside.com. These fire pits are absolutely incredible. As you can see, all you got to do is look at the pictures on here. You can make some marshmallows over the top. And the thing that I really love about it is the branding. You can put your brand, you can put whatever you want to put on it. We have the Officer Tatum one. My guy Jim got one at the house. You can also grill on these things. They put the top right on the top, and you can put some steaks on it. Jim was telling me that he was making some hot dogs on it. You can see they made one for First Form right here for all of you First Form lovers. And the owner here is an incredible guy, man. He came right here to the headquarters. We fired that thing up. It's beautiful. It's sturdy. You will have this for the rest of your life. It's thick metal. I think he said it was like 12 gauge metal, proudly made in the United States of America. None of that overseas crap. So make sure you get you one of these fire pits, and you can also use it as a grill. Look at the reviews, all 5-star reviews. You cannot find a product like this anywhere else in the world. I'm telling you. Every other product that they try to make like this, they make it cheap. It falls apart. It's not made with the American pride that this fire pit is made from. So make sure you go on to Fireside or myfireside.com. Tell them B. Tatum sent you, and let's make this patriotic company the #1 company in the world. Now, let's go to the state map of the election. To me, bruh, unless you colorblind, this looks like the majority of the counties are red, and they definitely love Charlie Kirk. You want to bet? And I know Landry. I met him before. His accent is crazy. That dude, when you talk about gumbo eating, Louisiana swamp, alligator hunt, he invited me to an alligator hunt. You know you country. You know you from Louisiana. You should have seen what he said to me, man. I can't wait for y'all to listen to his accent. He like, man, you come over here and get that gumbo. Get that gumbo, get an alligator. You hit him in the head, you shoot him in the head and top, and you flip him over. We cut him, make him into purses and all kind of. He had that accent. I was like, boy, he from Louisiana. He is Louisiana's finest. This is when he was like the attorney general or something like that. But do your math, bruh. He's not representative of Louisiana. The governor of Louisiana loves him, and all these people voted for the governor of Louisiana, and all these people went to Donald Trump, and Charlie Kirk was a big responsibility for Donald Trump winning. It looks to me that most people in Louisiana love Charlie Kirk. All right, let's get to the Pat McAfee clip, because I think that this will give Ryan Clark a little bit of context of what he's saying and his frustration in good faith. I'm going to play it real quick. Roll clip 203.
So the governor runs the state schools. Is that accurate? So ultimately, you are boss at LSU. Is that a fair assessment? Because I don't know. This is a legitimate question. Whenever I say this.
Yeah. So we've got a number of four-year universities in the state of Louisiana, and each LSU has their own board. It's called the Board of Supervisors. It's appointed by the governor under staggered terms. So really, I'm the one that appoints them. They then appoint the president and the AD, and the decisions that are made at the university are really made by the board, but there are appointees that represent me. That's pretty much the same way I think it happens around the state, around the country. I know that's how it happens in Texas as well. The governor's in charge of appointing the Board of Regents of, say, A&M and UT.
Okay, so you have the Board of Supervisors there at LSU. You said in your press conference that they will either find a committee to find the coach or they will select a coach. In that entire process, are you in there at all? Because I think people were saying, because you said in there, I'm not picking a coach. You said, I'm not picking a coach, but other people will pick the coach.
I'm not.
Now, do you feel, though, that immediately upon you speaking about it, everybody thinks to themselves, Governor Landry wants to pick a coach? That is kind of what people get worried about. That is not what you were saying at all, right?
No. Listen, emphatically, I am not picking the coach. That is not my job. The only reason I'm really involved, Pat, is because this contract that currently is between the state of Louisiana, the Louisiana State University system, and Brian Kelly leaves the taxpayers of the state on the bill. There's misinformation out there. People are saying, oh, no, the taxpayers aren't liable. They're not reading the contract. On Sunday, I had a meeting with the lawyers as they were talking about whether or not Brian Kelly was terminated, whether they were going to fire him. And all I cared about were the taxpayers of our state. And that contract binds the state of Louisiana. If we have to pay $53 million and somebody else doesn't step up to foot that bill, the state of Louisiana has to foot that bill. That is in the contract.
So, without even digging that deep, maybe Ryan Clark should interview the governor, because it appears Ryan Clark don't know what he's talking about. He act like the governor is just sticking his nose into something he has no association with. The governor just explained how they select the board and they kind of represent the governor. And then there are contracts with the coach that could put the taxpayer dollar or the taxpayers on the hook for a $53 million payout. Because when they fire these coaches, they have to pay them out the rest of their contract, which is a great contract, right? You lose and they pay you out. And to be honest, I know a little bit about football. Ryan Clark did play at a higher level than I did, but I know a lot about football. And I would argue, if God wanted to be different, I probably would have went to the NFL and been just as good or better than Ryan Clark. I was bigger, and to be honest, I don't know. Maybe he can probably catch a little better than me, but I was a little bigger than him, and I would argue I was more athletic than he was. However, that's nor here nor there. He did play in the NFL, and I didn't. But at the end of the day, sometimes people pick bad coaches on their last leg. Just because you were the most winningest coach in history at Notre Dame, it does not mean that you are still capable of winning on a different team. So if there is any critique about frustrations with hiring the wrong coach, it's not just about winning. It's about, can you win in this culture? Do you still have it in you? And Ryan Clark already admitted that his buy-in wasn't what it needed to be. That's why he ended up getting ousted. And that's the critique of saying, did you know his buy-in wasn't that good when you decided to hire the man after his prime? That's the part that goes on in many of these campuses. Like University of Arizona, Coach Rich Rod, and I don't know him, he probably follow me, but I'm just saying, Coach Rich Rod, in my personal opinion, they seem to get people after they've already done a lot of stuff. Rich Rod was successful at West Virginia. I believe he was successful at Michigan. What is it, Michigan? I forget where he came from. It was West Virginia. It was somewhere else. I think he went to Michigan. He got fired, went to West Virginia, got into something. And then Arizona hired him. He did really well under Coach Stoops' athletes that Coach Stoops recruited. And Coach Stoops wasn't a good coach. He was great at recruiting. He recruited me and a bunch of other All-American athletes. But he didn't know how to coach us. That's why we lost almost every game. Until the very end, he did okay. Then they fired his sorry self. No offense to his daughter. I know she followed me on social media. But her daddy was just not a good coach at that school. And he went back to Oklahoma and got fired from Oklahoma, and his brother was coaching the team. So you messed up when your brother fired you, bro. But then, because it's in the family, Coach Mark Stoops, who was my defensive back coach at Arizona, is the coach of Kentucky, the most winningest coach in Kentucky history. I give him his props because I liked him more than I like Mike. And he brought him on the staff because that's his brother. You know what I mean? You're going to take care of your brother, all right? So anyway, Ryan Clark need to stick to sports and stop trying to act like he know anything about politics. Almost every political stance he make is wrong.